our first director, Harry Bradbeer, would always say, "What if Orson Welles had
There you go.
Yes.
Steadicam?" He's
Yes.
like,
Yes.
the story I'm interested in telling
So
is
good.
is using new technology to tell the stories that Orson Welles did.
Welcome to another CG garage, where the monstrous moon shines. We're building New Hollywood like in 1971's prime. From Arte's bold dreams to AI's fevered dream, where tech meets the silver or LED screen. Pixels and passion, our pipeline's unknown. Two hosts, one show, on a deadline postponed.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the CG Garage. This is episode number 554, featuring the incredible Mr. Hnedel Maximore, who goes way back with me. I've known him for a very long time, but more specifically, he is the VFX supervisor for Spider-Man Noir, an incredibly interesting series on Amazon Prime. It is really, really cool. It stars Nicolas Cage. It's available to watch in both color and black and white, which is also very unusual, something that we discuss quite a bit on the podcast, as well as hear about his incredible history, which actually has an origin story very similar to mine. Really love Hnedel. He is one of the kindest people, and I've been wanting to have him on for a long time. I am so glad we get to talk about his latest project on this one. I don't really have any big announcements except that SIGGRAPH is coming up. I will be at SIGGRAPH, and I will be talking at SIGGRAPH. I just finished, we just wrapped on filming a scene for our upcoming feature development that we've been doing for June, July, and we are able to use some incredible virtual production tools, including Gaussian splats, which we were able to relight using the latest version of Chaos Arena, and turned out really, really incredible. I was super happy about it. So yeah, hopefully you guys can see it, and we'll be able to talk about it at SIGGRAPH. So hope to see you there. But for now, please enjoy episode number 554 with Hnedel Maximore.
This episode of CG Garage is sponsored by CenterGrid Virtual Studio. Wondering why you went to film school just to be stuck managing hardware life cycles? CenterGrid delivers end-to-end GPU-accelerated cloud workstations built specifically for VFX and creative production, with flat, predictable pricing and personalized support from people who actually get your workflow. Plus, CenterGrid is TPN Gold Shield certified, so your studio's security is locked down. Check out what Virtual Studio can do for your pipeline at cgvirtualstudio.com. This episode of CG Garage is sponsored by Kitbash 3D, one of our favorite tools and an essential tool for 3D artists everywhere. With the largest library of cinematic quality, production-ready 3D assets, Kitbash 3D ensures that your studio has the tools to build stunning environments quickly, efficiently, and at scale. Design detailed worlds in a fraction of the time without compromising on quality. Head to kitbash3d.com and use the code CGGarage at checkout for 10% off any kit. Again, that's kitbash3d.com, code CGGarage.
Hnedel, I've been trying to, I've wanted to have you on the podcast for a long time. I just never got around to it. And it's like, oh, something happening, whatever. It's like, oh, I should get Hnedel on the podcast. And now it feels like finally we actually have a good reason to do it now.
Yes,
Like we've got some great stuff, and
a much better reason.
I don't know if there wasn't necessarily a bad reason, but I think the excitement of Spider-Man Noir is fantastic, and I think it's really great that you got involved with it, and we'll definitely get to that. But let's start. You've heard this podcast before. Let's start with your backstory. What's your origin story? What's the spider bite that got you into visual effects? Right?
What got me into visual effects? I mean, I went to school for architecture.
Where's that?
At Lawrence Tech in Michigan, just outside of Detroit. It's architecture engineering school.
Yep.
Heavily funded. I mean, it was like really sponsored by the big three early on in the beginning of the school, but then the architecture program and the engineering program is kind of like this like hidden gem in the Midwest for really good architecture schools. We had some.
And is that where you're
amazing
from the
professors.
Midwest? Is that where you're from, or?
Originally, I'm from Liberia. Grew up
Yeah.
grew up in Liberia. Went to high school in Accra, Ghana, because of the Civil War, and then moved to the States for university.
Okay.
Went to university at Lawrence Tech, and then moved out to LA in 2010.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So were you, when you were in Liberia, were you interested in architecture then?
Yeah. It's funny. I was just having this conversation with someone the other day. My interest in architecture started from like the 4th grade.
Same.
I was
Nice.
I was hanging out. My mom had some friends over. My uncle is a civil engineer. His best friend is an architect, and they came over, and I was just doodling, doing comic book drawings, like drawing He-Man and like muscly dudes. And my uncle Jojo was like, "How's your fractions?" And I'm like, "It's okay." And he gave me some drills on fractions. He was like, "What are you doing for the summer?" And I told him, I'm like, I'm free. Obviously, I don't know, 12, 10, 12 at the time. And I'm like, I have nothing to do this summer. He's like, "You should come work with me." So I would go to his office. My morning would start with drafting and like lettering and drafting. And then when I'd have lunch at the office and then follow him on work sites. So that's where my passion for architecture started. So I always thought I wanted to be an architect from 3rd, 4th grade. So when I moved to the States, I applied to architecture school, got in at Lawrence Tech, and then started school there.
What year was this approximately?
This was like 1999.
Right. So
when
CG was just starting to come into architecture.
Super early. I started taking a bunch of 3D ArcViz electives, and in one of my elective classes was this guy named Tim Jones of old school Nomen, V-Ray, Intro to V-Ray, Intro to Environment Modeling. Same Tim Jones who used to be at Blur. He's now at ILM, and we became really good friends in one of those elective classes, and we've kept in touch. I actually saw him when we presented Noir at ILM a couple weeks ago.
Amazing.
So Tim and I always stayed in touch, and then I always thought I wanted to be an architect. I stuck with it. Went to work for a studio that did primarily large venues like stadiums. This studio in Detroit called Rossetti. And then around 2007, during the housing crash, I got laid off. And they gave me an option. Hey, we can loan you out, or we can lay you off. I took the loan out. They loaned me to the studio that did primarily hospitals. And my God, so much respect for the people who do architecture in hospital work, but anything in hospitals is it's so boring and mind numbing.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I need to find something else. I met Lyndon and John Akira at a party, and I told them I'm looking for something else. They were
Lyndon,
like,
who was a speed shape Lyndon?
Lyndon Venard, same Lyndon.
Yeah.
And so like we
it's amazing how small this industry is.
Yep. So I went in, interviewed, and I interviewed with Eric Bruneau. And
wow, Detroit. Yep.
Yeah. I interviewed with Eric Bruneau and Lyndon.
Did we work at SpeedShip at the same time? No,
we did overlap.
Right.
Yeah.
We did overlap.
Yeah, I think when Rob and
Rob
maybe
Niederhorst.
Cedillas?
Yeah. Yes.
You and Rob came to Detroit for like a quick visit or something.
Yes.
And I met you guys in passing at the time, but kept more in touch with Rob.
Mm-hmm.
And then worked at SpeedShape for a few years, met Chad Wanstreet, became really good.
Yep.
We've stayed really good friends.
Yep.
And then moved out to LA in 2010 and just started freelancing.
So so you was like, okay, I got my I built my chops up in Detroit, right? Did a lot of car commercials, right?
Yep.
and then when you how did you sort of make the move to LA?
I I was keeping in touch with Tim and other friends who had moved out to LA,
Okay.
and I mentioned to Tim, I'm like, look, I think I'm going to make the move. I think I've ran the course at. I tried to get transferred internally at SpeedShift to get transferred to the LA office. I was, especially around the time when Joe Kosinski did
the Blackbird project.
the Blackbird
Mhm.
spot, and I was just like, look, this, the stuff that we're doing in Detroit is cool, but the stuff that the LA team is doing is much cooler. This is where I want to be.
Right.
Please transfer me to that office. And SpeedShape dragged their feet for whatever reason. It didn't work out, and that's like, I can't rely on a company to do this for me. I need to take the initiative and do it myself.
Mhm.
So I applied for a freelance gig, and then Alex Thiessen was at Sway.
Yep.
And with
he was on recently the podcast too.
Yeah, friend of the show.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Alex hired me out of. Alex was like, we can hire you for 3 weeks at Sway for a Scion commercial, and I was like, done. I called Tim. Tim was like, you can crash at my place until you find an apartment.
Right.
And I packed up my apartment in my Jeep and pulled the U-Haul across the country.
Right on. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's the way to go sometimes. A lot of people just do that. So amazing. So your first freelance gig was at Sway?
First freelance gig was at Sway.
This was after I left Sway, I'm assuming, or was I?
Yeah.
No.
So this was like around August-ish of 2010. Like what was supposed to be 3 weeks turned into like 6 or 8 weeks, which was great because I was happy to just have steady work. And then after Sway, went to DD with Tim, which is where I met you, Dan.
Yeah. That's right.
It's lots of fun after lunch. Friday lunches at the waterfront.
That's correct. That is right.
Yeah, and then I was, I bounced around freelancing for a while. DD, Pixo, back to DD.
Yep.
And then Scanline for a couple of projects. And then Zero VFX I went to work for Zero based on Rob's recommendation.
Right.
There was a project that Equalizer. Sean needed some help.
Right. Sean Devereaux,
Sean Devereaux needed some help as leading an effects artist on Equalizer. What I thought was 2 shots turned into, hey, we have multiple sequences.
Right. The whole show.
Do you have anyone else you want to do this with?
Right.
And you guys are probably going to have to move to Boston for the last 8 weeks of the push. So I brought on.
Right.
I recommended Alan McKay, who's a really good friend of mine also. Yep. So Alan and I did this Equalizer at Zero VFX in Boston.
Right.
And then when I came back, I freelanced for a little bit on a few things. And then Sean called me back to Zero for a Magnificent 7. Was the next project I did there. And I, after working with Sean for a little bit, I told him like, hey, Sean, I would really like to shadow you. I want to move up to VFX Supervision. And he was like, we can't give you this role if you're not a staff. And I was like, I'll take a staff gig with you. He was like, okay, let me find a good project. Once the next feature project come in, we'll work on a way to let this happen, make this happen. That feature got pushed. Sean seemed to be making some other moves. Yep. I didn't know the full details of it, but either way, it seemed like Sean was kind of parting ways at Zero. The staff position didn't work out. And then I was like, okay, this isn't happening. I need to figure out a way to make this happen and move up. At the time, Chad was at Fuse. Chad said, you should take a staff gig at Fuse and just kind of earn your stripes. Let people know that you can work your way up and that you're talented beyond, an artist that can do shot work.
Right.
And so I took a staff gig at Fuse, and that's kind of where I kind of came up.
You parked there for a long time. You were there.
I was at Fuse for like 5-6 years.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think Fuse was a great size studio. They were doing a ton of good work, and they had a wide variety of work. And if you were willing to step up and learn and show initiative at Fuse, there was plenty of room to grow, and I really appreciate them for that opportunity.
Yeah, it was a great place. It's a great place. So it was good to I mean, that's where we reconnected there when I was at Chaos and I was hanging around
Yeah.
Fuse a lot, and I was like, "Oh, look, it's Hnedel," and so we were chatting. I remember, you and I were one of the first people to get our Model 3s, and you got yours before mine. So I actually got to sit in your car before I sat in my car, which was back in the day when it was hard to get out of one of those cars. Now it's not so hard, but yeah, that's awesome. And so that journey, like you always seem to just be very much trying to figure out how to do it and just opportunistic about what's going on. And you obviously were very aggressive about like, I want to be a supervisor. I want to do this. I want to do that. So.
Yeah, and I think that you have to be intentional. My parents always raised me to be like very intentional about my goals and like set realistic goals, but map out what your next. Always try to map out what your next path is. Right. In anything creative or anything or in life in general. So I kind of took that approach with my career. Right.
Well, it's true because you'd see that a lot with people. Let me just a DD, like where you'd see people that are really great, but they just sort of sit in the same position for a decade plus, because they wouldn't try to push to do anything else. They would just wait for whatever was coming across their desk again. And
there's nothing wrong with that.
It's totally fine. But like at the same time, when people have some sort of, they want to do something else, if you don't take action, no one's going to, it's not going to happen. Like you have to make it happen for yourself.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say to that too is, for anyone, if you're looking to move up and get off of supervision, the biggest thing for me was not being involved in the cool shots and being in the detail of the cool shots.
That is the hardest part.
And I think that is the hardest part where I think like a lot of people who want to supervise and want to move up and for me, it was like, look, what's more important, right? Like doing the cool shot and having the coolest shot on your reel or being part of telling a broader story.
Yeah.
And for me, being part of telling a broader story and working with directors and working with show creators and showrunners was far more important than being, I think it's like I've always been like a big picture guy. Maybe it's the architecture background. Maybe it's just my personality. I don't know, but I've always been that, I always want to be part of the storytelling, especially in this.
Exactly.
This
because the
industry,
VFX supervisor is part of the storytelling team. Like that's the consistency of everything that is happening. It's building the world. It's like being aware of everything that's being constructed for the audience. So it has that full experience loaded in, as opposed to shot people, they're just like, I'm concerned with the shot. And like when your mind is just down like that. It's nice to be
just concerned about one shot and having that your focus.
Yeah,
and sometimes
100%.
it's love to get all that stuff. But it was hard for me to say, oh no, I can't work on that shot. I'm seeing someone else, or you, I'm sure you had to, or you see someone else working on it. It's like, just give me your mouse. Fix it.
And you sneak in there.
That's right. That's like that Mad TV skit when the IT guy comes to the office and just yells, "Move, move."
Yeah. I'm gonna. Yeah, exactly. No, that was exactly right. I mean, it's like that thing. But enabling other people to do these things is kind of the thing that has to happen, right? That's the thing that's the most important, which people don't realize. Like your next logical step isn't necessarily to supervise, because that's actually a completely different role, a completely different skill set.
Correct.
Yeah.
And one of the good things about freelancing and bouncing around to these different places was I got to work with like some amazing supervisors, right? Like Sean Faden was one of my supervisors at Pixo, and then Sean Devereaux when I went to Zero, and when I was at Scanline, Chris Ledoux, Joel Farrell,
amazing,
Stefan, all those guys were
all great
people to just like learn under and learn their approach to not just Brian Grill even. I don't know why. Like can't say Scanline and not think of Brian Grill.
Amazing.
But but just learning from those guys and working under them was a great experience. It's
absolutely.
For
Yeah,
sure.
I think that there's such a most folks that from an audience point of view, you may know a few names, but like there is a network of superstars that the public will never know that we have all had the pleasure of crossing paths with. Brian Grill is way up there, and all those guys. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, he's such a teddy bear. That guy, I love him.
Incredible.
He's so nice. And he was the first movie I ever worked on was actually Day After Tomorrow, and this is back when Brian was still at DD, and we all called him Ote.
Ote,
and
that's right.
He and I remember, his background was compositing, as you might remember, and I didn't really know much about compositing as an ex-architect like yourself, right? So, but I wasn't familiar with it as much as what it could do. And so I was working on the big snowy city stuff for Day After Tomorrow. And Brian says, let me take a look at this stuff. And he like brought it into his nuke comp, and I just saw what he could do with my raw elements. And I'm like, oh, that's what, because I was like, it's all CG. Why do you need to composite it? There's nothing to put over anything. And I'm like, oh no.
Oh, you make it look real and amazing.
Yeah, you can make it look way better, right? Yeah. And it was, and Brian was so nice to me about it. He's like, oh, this is great. Look at all the things, and you give me this, and I can do that. And he was so kind to sort of like show me why this was important. He's always been kind to me. And another thing he did, which is very Brian, like he cared about all the employees really well. And we were on Stealth together, and it was a hard show. And he would go to Costco and buy treats for different groups of people, right? To do this. And then he bought a bottle of Oban for me and Rory McLeish. And he put it on a high shelf that he knew that I could reach because I'm tall. So he's like, that's for you up there, so no one else takes it. And so he bought it. So you're working at midnight because you're working these crazy hours. Like, I'm going to have some Oban.
Oh yeah,
it was on the top shelf, and
that was the industry at the time, boy. Way.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a little bit more like Mad Men. I was watching Mad Men recently again. I was like, wow, this was pretty much DD. It was constant drinking.
That was nuts.
Yeah,
nuts. Different days.
I remember like my last few days at DD when it was still in Venice was like there was still the Lefroy Scotch Wednesdays.
It was constant
in the desk drawers. And then when DD moved to Playa, a lot of that was like,
that's done.
That's
that was
that's not going to fly anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well,
awesome. So you got into the supervising gig, and obviously, that helped you. Eventually, you got to do Noir. So how did you land that gig on that, and how was it presented to you?
So I had, done a few 2 shows, 3 seasons at Amazon. And my first project at Amazon was them season 1, second, which I was overall VFX supervisor, but I was still employed at Fuse. Next project I got when I went freelance was Hunters. And then after Hunters, I did them season 2. And then I did Yo Gabba Gabba in between. And then I was up for, and then I heard I heard Noir was greenlit, and I asked to be interviewed. The one thing I will say about Amazon is, my previous projects at Amazon were pretty hard projects, right? Like hard in the sense where the the expectation is high, but the budget isn't quite there. So you have to be super creative in how you approach the work. And thankfully, just all of the skill sets and all the tools that I had learned over the years kind of put me in a good position for success on those shows. So when Noir came around, which was a much bigger show than all of those other shows, and I asked to be considered, the VFX executive at both Juliet Yeager at Amazon at the time and Cindy Kerber at Sony, who had seen me work on these difficult projects, were very much like, you know what? Yeah, we think we think you could handle this. Do you have any superhero experience? And I said, well, yeah, look at all of the work that I did at Fuse as a VFX soup and a CG supervisor. So they gave me the chance to pitch on the show, to at least interview. They put me on the list of people to interview. And then I got scripts, and I immediately, like, I read the scripts, read through the show Bible, watched the noir references, and it was just like, I immediately spent like the next 8 hours of my life, 8 to 10 hours of my life, just putting together a pitch deck. And on my first interview, I interviewed, showed them what
here it is,
what I thought. This is how I understand your project. Hopefully, we're all on the same page.
Right.
And both showrunners were like, "We think you get it."
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, great. I think I have the show, but I'm an unknown, so I had to interview with the team from Lord and Miller.
Right.
And then I also had, then I had to do another interview with the executives at Sony and Amazon, because they were like, they put you up for this show and they kind of they don't wish you the best, but they usually don't hear back from you until the showrunners say, this is who our supervisor is.
Right.
And apparently it was down to me and someone else, but the Amazon and the executive were like, hey, look, we'd like to see how you interviewed, what you presented to the showrunners, because they really like you, but there's someone else that they're considering also. So they want us to help finalize their decision. So I represented all the material.
Yeah.
And at the time when I pitched the show was in black and white only. But when in my presentations, I had to present both color and black and white, and work why the importance of us working in color, shooting color, and why VFX needs to work in color. Because in my initial email, there was this conversation about my showrunners wanted the show to be native black and white, and I was like, this is a red flag for VFX for all the obvious reasons to us. But I had to make it obvious to them.
What does a blue screen look like?
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. It's a soft gray screen. Look.
Yeah, exactly. Let's luma key and rotor our way into
exactly.
Yeah.
So after that interview, I was just like, well, maybe someone with more experience or like a deeper resume is going to get this show. And then I got a call from Cindy saying, hey, let's chat on Monday. We can, our showrunners agree with us. Like, we think you'll be a good fit for this show. We agree with the showrunners. We think you'll be a good fit for this show. So let's move ahead.
Right on. Yeah, because I'm not going to lie, that is a great looking show. That is a great looking show. Oh my glory. Yeah. I've watched the opening 3 episodes now. I've watched them all in black and white. I watched about 20 minutes in color the first one, but I'm a super old school film nerd, so I went black and white for the rest of it.
I only watched the color one because I knew that everyone's going to watch it. I will go back and watch it in black and white, but I wanted to see the color as well, because I wanted to see what was there, right? And I think it's interesting that they do these things, and that black and white is becoming important again in a lot of ways. Obviously, this is a noir thing. The story itself is about noir, right?
Yep.
And it's almost a cliche of the private investigator, and that, and it's great. It's so great to have that, because I think that's a trope that's sort of
if you don't
comes back, right? In some ways,
it's the kind of thing that if you don't handle it right, it can go wrong, right? And I think that what's so awesome about this thing is that the world is so beautiful and coherent and deep feeling that even when you're just watching a regular conversation with a couple of gangsters or whatever on the street, you have a deep buy-in to the rest of the world all the time. It doesn't feel like it's been, sort of cordoned off, like we're shooting ABs on these guys and then we'll show you a wide shot of the city to remind you you're in a comic book kind of thing. It's absolutely constant and always doing you the favor of keeping you in that flavor and keeping you in that world. And I think that's if anything, it makes sense to me that you put together this amazing pitch deck to get the gig, because that's easily, like they
You
know what
gotta get it, right?
yeah, you got to go for it. And like once they
and
see
it's
it,
a style, right? It's a
Yeah.
style. I think that's the thing that, and I think this is interesting, Hnedel, because, you know, like a lot of, I don't know what your pitch was like, but I'm guessing the reason they probably picked you is you probably understood the style. You probably understood the world.
Right.
So that's, it's funny you say that because like, and going back to architecture school, and I'm sure you had the exact same, you guys did the exact same thing, but late night in studio, you're building models. You're up late building models, and you've got someone brings a cheap projector to studio, or there's a laptop in the corner, and there's some movie playing in the background.
Yes.
And there was there was a time where, like, you know, like we went through a phase in architecture school where we were all obsessed with Tom Main and morphosis and deconstructionism and deconstructivism. So we were watching all these black and white movies.
You know that Tom Main's been on my podcast?
That's so good.
I must have missed that episode.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Tom Main, for those who don't know, Tom Main is a very, very, very famous architect, head of Morphosis Architecture, which was right around the corner from our office in Culver City. But he is just sorry, I'm gonna, for the audience,
take it, please.
There's the deconstructivist movement that everyone thinks of just Frank Gehry was actually three people, and they're all Los Angeles based. It was Tom Main, Frank Gehry, and Eric Owen Moss, right?
Who basically built most of
Culver
City.
Yeah. Right. And so those three guys were so important. And I had the same thing that when I went to architecture school at Rice in the 90s, and then suddenly I'm introduced to like, what the fuck is that? And I realized it was Tom Main, right? And it was, and one of my my professor at the time, he did his internship at Morphosis, and so he showed me all the stuff he was doing. I was like, this blew my mind, right? And I loved decon. It was so fascinating. And that wasn't, interestingly, although I liked Frank Gehry's old school stuff when he did stuff with chicken wire and plywood, which is what, the Digital Domain campus was. It was not, that's what I like. I didn't like the fancy
You like the rough
stuff.
stuff. You don't like the fancy stuff.
I like the rough stuff, right?
Right.
And I liked it when it was just like, there's something weird about it. And so, yes, but those things were important, right? Because those architects were inspired by film in many ways.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like we, all watching like Casablanca, Double Indemnity, like all of these like old noirs, and having to go back and rewatch it for this show, the pitch for me was easy, right? And of course, like I had to pull references from modern times just to be, just to kind of like help shape the story that we're telling, because we were telling, the way I understood it as this is a modern noir that's paying homage to, the Maltese Falcon and all these amazing noirs that, all these classics. So like the things that were in my pitch deck were, I had some images from Perry Mason that I had made black and white versions of and did like paint overs of. There's just, we were also shooting in LA and one thing that was also clear was shooting LA for New York, and the ability to show, I needed to show our showrunners that, not just to talk like, hey, we can put blue screen here and do set extension, but I did some mock-ups and temps to say, hey, these are LA plates that we can make look like New York if we shoot in these locations. And having been friends with a lot of production designers, I knew where to go steal photographs or take photographs of like, Art Deco architecture that are very prevalent all over Los Angeles that could then play as New York. And just
save you money.
Showing, correct.
Exactly.
And so like playing, just showing that, hey, not only am I a VFX guy, but I also, I have, because of my architecture background, you're bringing on someone who understands like the world building side of it from an intimate level. And then I also showed like I showed them some stuff with like how we could handle prosthetics and like some sand simulation stuff, just a little bit of everything that was well-rounded, basically.
And that stuff, like the transformation stuff and the sort of the gritty texture, like that, all that, like that felt far more, how can I say this, tangible than most anything I've seen in a superhero story in a long time. There was something really like heavy and intense about that design that was unexpected.
But isn't it? I'm sorry to I don't want to put that. It is extremely stylized, so it's not necessarily tangible. But because everything is in that same world, it's all believable, right?
Yeah.
That's a much better way to put it, because when we initially started having conversations around our supers, our showrunner was very clear that this is a performance, character-driven noir detective with a little bit of superhero stuff on
at all levels. And that's the thing I think is so interesting, because it is clearly a noir story, right? With
and some very modern choices that fit in bizarrely well. Like you get there's that I love the car attack sequence. I think it's in episode 2 or whatever it is. It's crazy, and it's covering so much ground and giving you so much location and city and world and depth. Meanwhile, the camera is wide and inside the car and moving around. You're catching things out the windows, and I was this is so, because for instance, people, I think when you just see stills of this, people will be like, oh, it must be like Sin City or something like this. And Sin City is a great looking movie, but it's also a very flat movie. It's a graphic movie, not a deep movie, right? And there's this thing that sequence alone, I was the action sequence is pulling me deeper into believing the world, which is what most movies and many superhero movies have sort of failed to do for me in a long time. Because they'll just have sort of a plain background where stuff is happening, but what you got together is so integrated and so convincing large scale and then convincing small scale as well, and transporting the camera between these two spaces convincingly is outlandish.
It is. It's interesting because it's a different kind of invisible effects.
Yes,
because it's not. The style is clearly not invisible. The style is very visible. But within that style, it is invisible.
Yeah,
right?
It's not calling attention. It's not constantly pointing to itself and saying, "Look how pretty I am." It's just every now and again you catch your breath and you go, "Oh my God, this is so gorgeous."
Yeah, there's a lot going on back there.
Yeah,
and again, we shot. So speaking of that 102 sequence, we shot this on scripted. It was meant to be 10 blocks where he's traveling. They're traveling 10 blocks, and this fight sequence happens. But we only had 3 blocks in LA. So our DP, working with our DP, our DP and stunt coordinator designed this sequence with the director, and then so our DP, we had conversations about lighting and all these conversations, and we decided okay, we will shoot one side of the street before noon, and then afternoon we'll shoot the other side when the lighting changes, just so we get light continuity,
right?
And then VFX will take over set extensions and all the invisible effects on this side, additional set dressing.
Yeah, brilliant.
And then production design will help the production design art department will help flip the world during lunch.
Right.
So it was a crazy 5 days.
Yeah.
Crazy 5 days shooting that sequence downtown.
Oh, it's so smooth. It works so well. I don't think I can't think of anything immediately that's been done for streaming that was as big and well executed as that one sequence. Really knocked me out.
ILM was our vendor on that sequence, and they did an amazing job.
Yeah, glorious work all through and through. Really stunning.
So the thing also that I think is wonderful is, noir films were always kind of, they were low budget, right? They were crank them out kind of stuff, right? And so this keeps that narrative. But I'm not sure this is low budget.
Well,
right?
I mean, it wasn't super low budget. No, I would consider this a tier 1, or
right.
Again, we're not, and I don't want to. I can't say money, but we're no. I don't think we're close to the Fallouts of the world, or Game of Thrones or any of that. We're much below that, right? But I think it was very clear where whatever where we had to put all of our resources.
Yeah.
And we tried to execute well in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was just about making target choices. And our showrunner was always very clear about what was important, what sequence was important, what sequence he wants to spend a lot of time and resources on, versus others.
Right. Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because I mean, obviously, in order to do that, if you have this, like you said, it's this, you don't necessarily have the luxury of trying a million things and say that didn't work and try it again. So previs is a big part of what's going on, right? Obviously. So talk about the previs and how planning something correctly is probably the right way to go. And what are the shortcomings of it? Like, because do you get tied to a decision in previs that make it hard for you to move out of in case you need to adapt to it? So tell me a little bit about your thoughts on that.
So again, this show, we were blessed with like some super talented people, but also, initially we started previs with Torchlight. And we worked with Alex and his team at Torchlight for a lot of our previs, and specifically the first sequence that we did virtual camera previs on was the fight sequence at the end of 101, at the top of, Rock, for intents and purposes, Rockefeller, under construction, the skyscraper under construction. And part of the reason why we did previs in the way that we did was to help control the scale of our build, right?
Yep.
Because I think that the first time we walked the taped out set before construction started, our set was way too large, and our UPM was already throwing up red flags for budget. So I was like, look, VFX can help with this, right? Like, we can take your SketchUp model from production. I went to our production designer, Warren. I said, hey, hand us your SketchUp models. We sent the files to Torchlight, and we got in and started framing shots with our showrunners and our directors. And the director was like, well, and then just in that time, our stunt coordinator, Freddie Bosiegas, was just like, look, I think from a fighting standpoint, the smaller footprint we have to fight in, and the more convincing and cooler we can make this fight.
Right.
So between VFX and stunts, we were able to like help production design make better choices and shrink down the scale of the set. Then, which meant to us being able to take some money from, or the UPM was saying, hey, well, we can take some money from here and now put it into set extensions and more shots and coverage, and et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
The same thing happened with the convoy sequence that you just mentioned. Like, we did, again, previs, but then what really started to happen was our stunt coordinator and his team was so amazing with their stunt viz, and they understood. They had worked with VFX on quite a few shows. What was Freddie had just finished the two-part movie on Netflix. There was a two-part movie on Netflix. It was directed, not James Gunn. It was directed by, please, I hope this is edited. We can edit this out.
So people hang on. It's good.
But either way, Freddie had just done a large VFX movie, and so he understood. He had done quite a few VFX projects, so he understood the process, and so quite a few scenes were just, we were able to get away with stunt viz for a lot of things. With some VFX shots cut in, and our showrunners would watch the stunt viz with VFX previs cut in, and have a clear understanding of the sequence, and be able to give more informed notes to the directors. And so whatever we knew that what we were capturing would give him all the support he needed when we got into post.
Which is something that's relatively new, because working with stunt folks, like, they wouldn't know anything about VFX at all previously. And now it's really integrated.
Our stunt team had, one of the stunt guys was basically an on-staff editor, and he would constantly have Blender open.
And so that's great. That's incredible.
So when we would go into their office from time to time, and Brooke and I were just like, if they're doing such an amazing job with stunt viz, and we're handing them assets, they're handing us their stunt viz, and we're talking back, we're constantly in communication. It's just like, well, maybe we can. It's okay to let and also our showrunner was responding a lot more to the kind of visceral action that our stunt coordinator wanted.
Yeah.
So it just made sense to let them lead the way on,
for
and
sure.
only support them with stuff that would help in the world building for their stunt viz.
Yeah.
Do you feel
go
that having 3D stuff, like the fact that now so many departments, so many different people in different departments have a strong knowledge of 3D, more specifically Blender. Like Blender now, everyone seems to know Blender.
That's the Venn diagram crossover.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the guy, the director of Backrooms, he did everything in Blender, and he would actually previs everything himself in Blender. Do you think the fact that everyone knows how to do 3D across all departments, does that change the way that you have conversations with people now, where you're not just like, I don't know, those CG guys will figure it out? You know what I mean?
Not really, because I think, like, everybody, I think people watch enough breakdowns and think they understand what we do.
Sure.
So unless it's like you said, unless it's someone who actually have been working in 3D, like from production design or from our stunt coordinator, who is he's a second unit director. He understands the filmmaking part. He just so happens to have a good 3D background or good understanding of 3D. So a lot of it always had to be collaborative, and we would have conversations because a lot of the conversation would come down to, you can pitch this, but we may not be able to afford it.
Right.
So let's kind of pull back and work together.
But yeah, well,
by the way, I should say to never not pitch something, because you'll be surprised sometimes.
Just never know.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, just figure it out.
That they
got an idea.
Find the money, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you a perfect example of that is Blur. They were working on Deadpool, right? The first Deadpool. And they're like, we need some kind of something. Like, what if we did a different title sequence, which they didn't have the money for? It was just going to be a straight title sequence. And they previs this thing with the whole freeze frame time camera moving through the entire car crash and all the jokes. They just pitched that as an idea. And they're like, oh my God, this is hilarious. And they found the money, right? So always
it's good that buy it.
yeah.
I mean,
always pitch.
Yeah. I 100% always pitch, because it's like, again, you can cut scenes here. There are scenes that did not end up in the show because we wanted to make a sequence bigger, or make, just add shots here, or, so I think, I 100% agree. I don't hold back just because the initial budget is saying X.
Yeah, always try to make the movie better, man. It's better for everybody.
Yeah.
It's better for you and better for everybody, And like, it's funny because you say with that, I was just watching, have you guys seen Wick is Pain, the documentary on the making of the John Wick movies? Like, you comes near Orson in this as well. Yeah. Like, just watching the stunt viz guys do their stunt viz is a movie in itself, man. Like, those guys, like, because like old school stunt dudes would just be like, I'm going to jump off the building, I'll be hit by the car, and you guys film it, whatever. But like, these guys are designing tricks for the camera. Like, they're just like, I want this to look as good as possible from this. So they become real filmmakers in their presentation. I think that's very, very exciting. That's really, really great. And you can see like that, like, I keep on going back to that sequence. I was like, holy shit, this is just nuts. Like, you just don't see this on TV. It's insane.
And Freddie, when Freddie presented that, they were in cardboard boxes for the cars.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. It's great.
It's all great. It was all rigged. There was a hole cut in the cardboard box for when this guy gets pulled out of the window. And everything was timed.
Yeah. It's so fun, man. And what's great about when you see stuff like cardboard boxes for cars is that when the stuff is good and the action is great, you quickly forget about that being cardboard. Like, you're in it because the action's so good, And so like, you can be shooting. It really shows you like what to pay attention to, because you're just like, you can get away with so much stuff if your eye's in the right place all the time, and really, really good design like that. I think that like, this is something I wanted to bring up earlier is like what you pulled off with the show, and that really makes use of the noir vibe better than most anything done with a noir style. I think it's often overcooked, right? They try to get too hammy about it, right? But as Chris brought up, Noir comes from low budget filmmaking when they literally only had 3 lights, and they're like, how do we shoot this? We only have 3 lights, you know?
Yeah.
And when you do that, you're just like, well, you put a light on the most interesting thing and rake it across so it has some texture. Then there's a big black empty space and a light on the actor, right? Now what happens in your mind is you see a little bit of detail here and you see a little bit of detail here, and then your brain fills in all the rest of it.
Yep.
And it builds the world out in that dark space. And that's, you know, in art school, that's chiaroscuro, right? And what some of the most effective bits that you have going on in this is like, not only does it put my eye in the right space, the action works magnificently, but you are using the money to buy even more believability from me, because you're just like, I'm going to show you this, I'm going to show you this, and then Dan Thron's going to make up the story in between these 2 points, and he's going to love it. It's incredible.
And you know, Dan, it's funny you say that, because like, you know, a ton of credit goes to our DPs, and someone asked like, how difficult was it with, you know, your set extensions are believable, the show looks great, like how hard was it to like kind of get that balance in the look of your show? And I was like, you know, like in VFX, we matched the plate. So like our DPs did such an amazing job with lighting and shooting and framing and shot framing, so that even when we are in full CG shots, in one of few times we are in full CG shots, we have such a strong template to match to that it's, you know, it becomes a lot easier and manageable, and we're not, they took away the guesswork.
Yes.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. When you're not having to make things up from whole cloth, you can get even further, and having great stuff to build on is incredible. Yeah.
The obvious question is obviously because you guys had to do it in color and black and white, because that's the thing, right? You had to do. And so you filmed everything in black and white or in color because you needed that for work purposes. Were you guys always looking at what it would look like in black and white, or was that all just something that was done in DI and post and they just figured it out later? So did you just basically just concentrate on the color version, or how did that work?
So it was like week 2 when we got word from Amazon, Sony that, hey, production is officially dual delivery. And we kind of, and our showrunners and DP were like, okay, we need to shoot a test and come up with a look for both a color look and a black and white look that the studio and we all love. Right. So we kind of went on this week and a half venture where we shot like mini tests all around the Sony lot, which has some beautiful locations, which has some beautiful
classic locations. There,
So we shot for like a 2 days on, and every department, like costumes, brought some wardrobes to test, production design got some backgrounds and paint that they had painted to test. Hair and makeup was there, and shot for 2 days. We obviously couldn't do VFX in such a short time, but at least we were there as part of the process. Every department head was invited into the DI process. After the VFX was in every single DI session with the DP and colorist.
Right.
Our colorist Pankaj Babjai at Picture Shop, and Darren. Once the design, the color LUT and the black and white LUT, all the department and the showrunners loved it. Every department heads were invited. They saw that what the LUT would do to each color. You know, they got a clear understanding of their color, what their color choices would translate to. And then when during production, all the monitors on set were black and white, with the exception of with the exception of DIT that had a small color monitor, and I would constantly have to bug our DIT to switch to review color on the big monitor.
But everyone looked at it in black and white.
Everyone on the crew saw the show. Most of the crew saw the show in black and white. But there was the color LUT was always available to whenever we asked. Right. You know, so you got a 4-camera, you know, on a 2-camera day. There's 3 or 4 cameras in DIT, black and white on the 2 main monitors. Small monitor in the corner is in color for VFX and the DP to reference, but the other 2 main monitors are black and white. So that our showrunners clearly wanted to be in a noir mindset. They wanted to see the show in black and white, and review performances in black and white.
Yep.
So the director monitor and video village was all black and white,
right.
But color was available for us who needed it.
Interesting.
Yep.
And then when we got shots from our vendors, our vendors would send one EXRs, but they had the two LUTs to constantly check black and white and color for every single shot. So final submission on the show was one EXR that worked with two LUTs.
Oh, right.
Where it got tricky was we started to, when we got into DI for our first episode, we realized that we needed a lot more support from mats.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a lot more like individual mats for for elements, as like anything additive gets like really tricky to balance and look great in both color and black and white. So there were tons of mats for like Dirk and Addison, who's on fire.
Right.
I thought it was the color itself looked very stylized in itself, right?
Yeah.
And so what I thought was fascinating, what I was looking at is like, and it just sounds like I'm going to knock it, but I'm not. I'm actually saying it's very successful. It almost looked like colorized black and white film.
Well, that's the way they frame it when they advertise it too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Funny you say that, because like as part of, there was a maybe way longer than it made any one of us comfortable. Certainly there was a conversation of, well, what if we shot in black and white and then colorize it? And using the Peter Jackson World War
I stuff.
The World War I documentary as a reference point. And I was just like, this is a bad idea. Like, we're going to spend so much money on colorizing when we could just we could shoot in color and push the color to look like that.
Right.
And that's correct. That's correct. Yeah. But you did push the color to do that, right? Like the skin tones had that kind of, back in the old pastel-y weird look, which was good. It was good. It was looked great. Yeah, it looked really cool. So
because it still has to have that old like not old timey, but that like romantic cinematic flavor of that period, and it really carries it. Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, like early color photography. Yeah. Our showrunner was like, I think like, the early color for our DP and showrunners, our DP pitched this like early color photography process, Kodachrome, that was like that he used heavily, and then like Chinatown, of course, was as a color noir was like a good reference point for like what he wanted the color version of the show to look like.
Which that actually makes a lot of sense, because Chinatown has those really like once you get into the darker end of their color palette in Chinatown, it really drops off to really dark, deep colors.
Really dark.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I was just telling Daniel, I talked on another podcast. I watched a movie by Ethan Cohen that came out recently called Honey Don't, which is another
right.
That's on my watch list. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's interesting because it is a private investigator, except it's in Bakersfield, California. So it's odd, right? And it's a woman, and it's, definitely heavily sexually explicit as well. But it's fascinating. But I thought about it when I was looking at this, because it's like, okay, so it's got all the normal private investigator noir stuff. Like it's got the private investigator, it's a little bit out there, a little bit old fashioned, get their ways.
Right.
Got the secretary that's a little bit, rough around the edges and always making fun of it. Same thing. Like, and that's a very common trope, but you put it in Bakersfield, and that's a little bit unusual. That's the way to spin it, right? And then the same thing I was thinking about with this thing is like, okay, so it's clearly New York, private investigator, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then a little bit different, a little unusual.
It's his girl Friday.
So it's familiar, familiar, and then not, right? And so
really great.
The noir, ironically, the style is what makes you comfortable and familiar, right? Yep. And that's, I think, what I think is kind of awesome about it.
Because it does have very sort of modern notes to it that really hit well, right?
Yeah.
It has good roots in like classic, out of the past, Casablanca, all that stuff, like that's there. And it also, like, especially in some of the like you brought up the the skyscraper fight with the first and like I was like this feels like if the oldest of serial movies, like the thing that became Batman, like the Bat and stuff like that, and the Shadow. It feels like if the Shadow had an incredible budget, like $1 billion budget to make the Shadow. Right. And I was like, this is the stuff that I haven't yet seen in a superhero film. And we've been having superheroes for 20 years, but I've never seen this. Like it feels both old and new at the same time.
It's funny you say that because our first director, Harry Bradbeer, would always say, the show that we're making, the movie that he's like, what if Orson Welles had Steadicam?
Yes.
He's like, the story I'm interested in telling is using new technology to tell the stories that Orson Welles did.
Absolutely.
Like, and it's always and even though you have Steadicam and you have all of the new camera equipment, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use it to its full potential. Right. Like you have to be like, you have to have the intent is, like calm shots, Dutch angles, and just like curated choices.
Yes. Yeah. The intention is so strong and so coherent, I mean, it's like watching, The Third Man or something like this. Like this, it's not showing off. It's building a functional world for you. Really great.
There was something I started to think, and again, I know it's not a visual effects thing, but it was very cool to see it in this. And like in the first episode, when you see the woman and she's singing, right, and that's her first sort of, and you see her sing, and it starts off like exact.
Traditional trope,
and
then it slowly eases into more and more modern technique.
Changes, it gets it's like wait, and you sort of like
lures you in.
It lures you in. It was perfect.
Terrific gag.
So the style they do it, and they don't go too far. They don't doesn't go into a full Britney Spears or whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't overstep it. It lets you know that there's something fresh going on. Yeah, it's really great. Yeah. It really terrific.
It was really cool, and I think they did it's great job, man. I mean, absolutely love it. I do want to talk a little bit about what's going on next and what your thoughts are, because obviously, you're doing these great things and shows like this are happening, which is exciting. I think obviously the world of movies and TV shows are changing drastically. What are your thoughts about where things are now and what you're up to? Like what's your next sort of push in terms of what you're learning, right? Because there's new learnings that everyone's doing right now.
Yeah. I think we're like a lot of us at this point in our lives, like we're all trying to find how to effectively use generative AI and all the AI tools in a smart way. I think, we did not use any Gen AI on this. We used very little Gen AI on this show, like process Gen AI in a sense that, like things for like roto and paint and that kind of stuff. Yeah. But nothing for a final shot sequence, just because Sony has very strict rules. Right. So because this is Sony Amazon co-production. Sony had very, very strict rules of like what was approved, what wasn't approved. We couldn't use anything else. So either way, it just we couldn't use any Gen AI on the show. But yeah, I am definitely exploring it and experimenting with all these new tools and seeing how I can effectively use it to for pitching, for having quicker conversations with with show creators and directors. Look, I think at the end of the day, this is a legal conversation, and if studios are saying, "Hey, these tools are allowed, that you can use these, and people will be properly compensated," great. Then yes, we empower our studio and studio partners and creative VFX partners to use them. Right.
But what about beyond AI? Because I think that there's, we've talked this a couple of times, and it's like, right now there are incredibly powerful new idea movies and shows that are being made for very little money that don't use AI, right? Yeah. Like things like, Backrooms and Obsession, which is something we're talking about obsessively these days recently, and more like those are done very intelligently and based on everything that you're doing. You're talking about your previs and your stunt coordinating and all the departments coming together. Do you feel that that model of preparation needs to be put together more as opposed to just trying to shove an AI solution when it doesn't?
100%. 100%. I think, I think like, but in some ways, I think this goes back to a kind of like people, I'm trying to find a good PC way to put this, but it's like VFX and the potential and understanding of visual effects have been so siloed, right? People have this very
agreed
myopic view of visual effects rather than treating visual effects as a broad set of tools that you can use in prep, in post, and as part of just experimentation, right? Like, because people don't understand it and understand all of these tools and sometimes don't give us the voice to so that we can like help effectively pitch ideas and work through things. I think like Obsession and Backrooms is just an example of just someone who understood these tools and used it well. Right. I don't think it's because the tools are not new, right? I think
they're not new.
Really what's new is the pricing structure that, like Blender is relatively free. So you don't have to pay Autodesk a ton of money to like, so that cost comes down.
Well, it's free. It's not, well, it's okay. You're right. I just wanted to more importantly, because it's free, you can learn it when you're 12. Right. Because that's if you're going to learn 3D and you're 12 and you're like, I'm interested in 3D, that's the number one thing you choose because it's extraordinarily capable, right? And it's free. So you grow up on that and that becomes your program. And that's probably all these 12-year-olds are now filmmakers and they know Blender, right? And so I think that's sort of a powerful way for them to think about, which I think is good. What I think I hear you saying is that visual effects was always sort of relegated to the post idea, right? And so then all of filmmaking has always been for a long time pre-production, production, and post-production, when really they should all be production.
Correct.
Right.
And that therefore visual effects should be a department that's continuous throughout this entire
It should be
process.
Throughout everything all the time.
And cohesive with all the people involved.
Correct. And in many ways, we are, right? Because like I was employee of the department heads. I was like employee number 4 or 5. I was hired like the same week as the DP, and then production designer just based on schedule was available the next week after. And then, so it's, we came on early, but there are plenty of shows where I've been brought on and it's like there's sets built.
It's already
someone
done.
has made choices on set extensions way outsed of VFX's purview, and it's just like I'm just inheriting this.
All you're doing is just putting X's on the wall.
When you say when you said sometimes we don't really have a voice in what's going on, like I think that this is part of like the trick about VFX is that our job is to be invisible all the time. Right. And because we're invisible and we're successfully invisible, people don't think about that we exist at all. Like audiences don't think, they're supposed to not think about us. Like that's the whole idea. But what that leads to is, for instance, the idea like CG ruins movies is like a very common, like people have this idea, oh, well, I can always tell when there's CG. And I'm just like, you cannot. Like you wouldn't even believe the amount of CG you see on a daily basis on regular shows.
How many shots were in a series that you worked on?
3250.
Yeah, it's just it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous the amount of work that goes on.
There's a lot of cleanup shots because you're shooting LA for New York, and there's a lot of invisible effects for so that 3250 might seem a little high for hopefully a show that isn't very very VFX forward.
But if you don't do the work, it's
correct.
Yeah, you have to do the work. And the thing is, it's like what you were saying about initially getting into the business. Like you have to attend to the boring shots also.
Mm-hmm.
And the bulk of what you're doing on a feature or a show are these little incidental shots, and it all has to make sense together, and you have to do all of them, and it's all real work, and it's all part of the illusion that you're creating for the audience. And it's so consistent and so realistic that they don't even know that they're being tricked, right? And because that's true, they don't even think to give credit to anyone having done it because they don't know that it was done. And so it's like when I was bringing up with Barbie, there's all sorts of footage of the above the line crew talking about how this is all, all of this was practical. We went practical. And meanwhile, it's all green screen. It's still these loads of green screen, but they tried to hide it by doing VFX for their BTS footage so people wouldn't know that it wasn't practical, because people have an assumption that the authenticity comes from the fact that this was a real set. And that's a compliment indirectly
people
to
are catching
the wonderful
their lies,
work
and it's not flying anymore, honestly speaking. It's not flying anymore.
Well, this is these kinds of, like when you're bringing up generative AI, right now everyone's like, oh, it's terrible, and you shouldn't use it and whatever. Like, I promise that that generative AI in the hands of some random guy in line at Walmart is terrible. But generative AI in the hands of the VFX supervisor of Spider-Man Noir, that's going to turn out useful things for him. Because he has taste and vision, which is what you are being paid for. That's
it's
the
actual.
It's curated.
We're curating. We're targeted. We're not just picking the.
You don't just throw your hands up and go, I guess that's fine. All this stuff is it's a process that you have to work hard at. And everything becomes a tool. And what you're saying, Chris, I also very much agree with, is that, the brilliance of things like Obsession is that they're so tight and so small that in order for them to be good, they have to be focused, right? They have to really understand what they're doing, how their shots work and all this. Turns out that mindset is true even when you're doing something expensive.
It is.
That's that. You have to think it through. You have to know what you're doing, and you have to have the best people on it in order for it to be good.
I will give even a bigger compliment to our showrunner for discipline, right? And sticking to his guns on what he wanted and how he wanted the show to look, because there were so many times where ideas were pitched that were cool, but they weren't tonally correct.
Yeah.
And I think sticking to your guns and knowing and being targeted and being disciplined about what you are making and your process is super important in in telling an effective story.
Yeah. You have the vision for this world in your mind. That's why it works so well. It doesn't matter. You could use any tools at all. AI, not AI, green screen, doesn't make any difference. If you're a great filmmaker, as you are, and you have a vision of how this world works, and you're keeping that in mind with every shot that you design, you're going to create the illusion for people that is so complete that they won't know you did anything. That is our job. And I would just want people to know that, the amount of work that goes into looking like there's no work is enormous.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And it's it's like good makeup. Good makeup
Exactly.
makes you look natural. Right?
Yes. If you're noticing it,
it's not working.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Listen, Hnedel, it's awesome seeing you. Thank you. Congratulations, man. Congratulations on such a great show and so cool. I didn't realize that you and I had almost an identical origin story of architecture. Yeah. I mean, I had a, it was a friend of the family who was an architect, and I was 8 or something like that. And I'm I want to be like that guy.
Yeah, dude.
You know? And it was the same thing that drove me. And I was like, and then I had the same experience. Like you were doing hospitals and I was doing reception desks. I'm like, I'm fucking tired of this stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, what else can I do? And that drove me to DD at the time. So,
I'm just sitting here with a couple of superheroes that were bitten by the same spider. It's pretty good time.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good to see you, sir. Thanks very much.
Tech meets the silver or LED screen. Pixels and passion, our pipelines unknown. Two hosts, one show on a deadline postponed.